It's the Twio Christmas Special 2015. Over the next 90 minutes, I'm going to be joined by 31 SEO and content marketing experts who are going to share with me and you their number one SEO and content marketing prediction for 2016. Joining me today will be Gareth Morgan from Liberty Marketing, Lucas Zelezny from USwitch, Steve Linney from Learning People, Kelvin Newman from Brighton SEO, Rob Weatherhead from Techmark, Bridget Randolph from Distilled, Alexandra Tachlova from alextachlova.com, Dave Naylor from Bronco, Andrew Steele from Equator, Dustin DeVille from Receptional, Danny Ashton from Neoman, Adam Vowles from Suso Digital, Tyler Barnes from Influence, Alex Tucker from PracticeWeb, Tom McLaughlin from SEO Travel, Michael Fleischner from Big Fin Solutions, Grant Whiteside from Amber Green, Matt Hodkinson from Influence Agents, Emily Hill from Write My Site, Andy Halliday from eBuyer, Michael Bonfils from SEM International, Andrew Shotland from Local SEO Guide, Chris Bland from Havas Media, Chris Green from Strategic Marketing, Pam Ungst from Pam Ann Marketing, Greg Gifford from Dealer On, Chris Marr from the Content Marketing Academy, Tom Schwab from tmschwab.com, JJ Grice from Branded3, Mark Trapagan from Stone Temple Consulting, Lawrence O'Toole from Analytics SEO, and me, David Bain, Head of Growth, right here at analyticsseo.com.
This week's in Organic. Live from London on thisweekinorganic.com.
Gareth Morgan, Lucas Zelezny, and Steve Linney. Come on in.
You're listening to This Week in Organic, live from London on thisweekinorganic.com.
So here we go with 90 minutes of SEO and content marketing predictions for 2016 with 31 different experts. First up, we've got Gareth Morgan, MD of Liberty Marketing, Lucas Zelezny, SEO speaker and head of organic acquisition at USwitch, and Steve Linney, head of marketing at Learning People. Lucas, how you doing there?
Fantastic. I've been really impressed about your Rudolph, the deer or reindeer.
You can't see it all. You can't see it all.
I know. And you know, I'm quite sad because I know it's epic. I just took a photo, me and you online and me here, and I will share with you. Epic, absolutely epic.
Right, okay. Well, we're going to get cracking straight on with it. Lucas, what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
First, you know me how big fan of social media I am to leverage SEO. It will be a big thing in 2016, and not the number of likes, not the number of shares, more about are you successful in social media? People are resharing your piece of content. You will definitely be successful in SEO because people will start quoting and mentioning you and linking to you. Second, I'm a big fan of this semantic approach, how Google is picking up content. So I will give you an example of a keyword, how to bake a cake. You will see the first results is like a recipe page, and Google is kind of intelligent to know that this website presents a very well way to teach you or me how to bake a cake. So the semantic artificially intelligent approach will be a big thing. That's from me to 2016.
Superb. Well, we started off well with ours. Lucas, where can people get hold of you online?
People can get in touch on Twitter, absolutely, and the holy grail of social media, my LinkedIn, which I absolutely adore, and I would copy myself there if I could.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Next up is going to be Kelvin Newman. We'll talk to you later, Lucas.
Thank you. Take care.
And Gareth, how are you doing there?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
We can hear you wonderfully well, yes.
Good.
You're obviously from Liberty Marketing. What is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Well, I'm going to throw you a bit of a curveball with this one because I spend most of my time in the world of advertising and paid search, and I think we're actually going to see a bit of a clash from these two mediums, mainly due to ad blockers. So something we're seeing is ad blocker adoption is growing at a ridiculous rate. It's something like 50% year on year, and it's costing a lot of publishers a lot of money. So I think there's going to be sort of a fallout because of this trend that's going to affect brands and going to affect publishers. So I think what we're going to see for a lot of publishers, if they can't sustain their operations because of advertising revenue, they're going to have to put up paywalls. They're going to have to start charging for content. So that's going to mean there's less options for us to get content out there that Google can index. I think from a brand's point of view is that if you're not taking content marketing seriously, if you're still using it as a way to sort of try and subtly advertise, if you're not taking it from an editorial approach, then you're going to suffer. So I think what we'll see is a lot more editorial-led content, a lot more quality over quantity. It's going to become more important next year. And it'll be interesting to see how much money gets sort of diverted from banner advertising, from pay-per-click, from social advertising towards this kind of work.
Quality over quantity. So that means then if someone is maybe just doing one blog post at the moment, they're perhaps going to be better off in 2016 focusing on producing one amazing resource once a month. Would that be better than actually once a week, you think, just a small blog post?
Well, it's always been quality over quantity, but I think what I mean here is you'd have to find authorities in your marketplace. You'd have to work with journalists. You'd have to come up with good data for your pieces, research things properly. In order for them to publish it, because these guys have quality guidelines. They've got editorial guidelines they have to live by. You can't just be sticking in sort of thinly veiled sales messages. So I think that side of things and native advertising is going to be quite important to us.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Gareth. Where can people get hold of you online?
libertymarketing.co.uk, and tell your friends.
Absolutely. Well, have a wonderful Christmas, and thanks again,
guys. Thank you.
And next up is Steve. Steve, how you doing?
Not bad. How's things?
Yeah, very good, thank you. So what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Well, to be honest, it's kind of it's not reinventing the wheel at all here, to be honest, but it's about kind of having great content and having a great content strategy behind that content. What we've kind of really found in 2015 is that having a kind of learner-centered content really means we've been able to get to the basis of what our kind of students want to hear. And I kind of really recommend that people make a lot of time to find out who their target audience are, who the persona are, and really kind of speak to them in the way that they want to be spoken to. And, it's great to make kind of good new news content. It's kind of very short in life, but it's also very crucial to make sure you have a kind of a long form content that's going to hang around in Google and kind of create a lot of buzz around your product and kind of what you want to talk about.
Okay, so talk about personas, but for organic content, does that mean it's a bit challenging because you may only actually be able to choose one or two personas, and you can't perhaps produce content that's utterly relevant for all of your audience?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think persona-wise, if you look at the whole journey of your target audience, not from just when they first get to know you, but if they're in that kind of sales cycle, how far along are they? Are they ready to make a purchase, or do they just want to get an ebook or see an animation? You need to kind of really kind of hone in on what your personas are. Don't just have an overarching view. You really need to know the different stages of who your persona and your target audience is.
Okay, wonderful, Steve. Well, how can our viewers get in touch with you?
Well, the usual places, PO Box. So on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter, it's just at Steve Linney. You should be able to find me there.
Lovely. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Have a great Christmas.
You too. Thank you.
And now, Rob Weatherhead, I don't think is going to make it. So, Bridget, if you're watching, you can just jump in now. Kelvin, how are you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks for joining us. Stressed. I don't know the meaning of the word. You should have seen me beforehand. So, what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
I'm going to take maybe a slightly contrarian view to things. I don't know if people have read two books that I really recommend quite highly. One of those is The Signal and the Noise by Nate Silver. And the other one I'm reading at the moment, who's the author's names completely escape me, which is called Super Forecasting. And they talk a lot about this kind of ability and need that we have sometimes to predict the future. And the reality is that in many cases, those of us who would describe ourselves as experts actually aren't necessarily super amazing at predicting the future. So my kind of message, my kind of prediction, even if I'm kind of contradicting myself a bit, is that generally we'll be pretty poor at predicting things next year. And in fact, what I think we should do, and I think what the responsibility, or more important than kind of trying to guess what's coming next, is getting better at dealing what we already know. And I think that's kind of would be my advice is be agile, respond to what you know is going to work, respond to what has always worked, and that'll often set you up quite nicely for the future.
So be agile, and agile companies are companies with the bigger opportunity then? Does that mean that it's more advantageous to be a small company compared with a bigger company?
I think size and agileness are kind of completely unrelated. Okay. So you can have small businesses that are kind of very set in their ways and not very able to respond to things, and big businesses that are very accustomed to that. It's kind of as much about frame of mind and philosophy as it is size and scale.
Great thinking. Thought. So thanks for joining us, Kelvin. Where can people get hold of you online?
I'm very much, as with everyone else on Twitter, my username is Kelvin Newman, all one word.
Lovely. Have a great Christmas, Kelvin.
Thanks very much.
Bridget, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. Hi, David. Hi, everyone.
So what is your SEO prediction for 2016 then?
So the thing I'm really interested in seeing where it goes next year is in terms of app indexation and what that means for the integration of app content with the rest of mobile web and especially web search. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, particularly with things like Google Now on Tap, this push towards being able to provide app content without the walls. I think traditionally we've talked about apps as walled content, walled gardens, actually. And it's always been quite separate, but now we've seen in studies that, for instance, smartphone users on average are spending over 80% of their time on their phones in mobile apps rather than on the mobile web as we traditionally would think of it. And I think for Google, for example, to fulfill that mission to organize the world's information, they need to have access to that content and make it accessible to everyone, not just the people who happen to have that app on their phone. So we're seeing trends like app streaming, AMP pages, that kind of thing coming out, which I think we'll just see an escalation of next year.
Right. Okay. So the walls are coming down in terms of app indexing. Does that mean that the key thing that businesses need to do in 2016, if they have an app, is ensure that their app content can be as indexed as possible?
I do. I think so. Absolutely. It's going to be really important to make sure that that content is accessible everywhere, not just from people who happen to find it in the App Store. And it will give you a lot more opportunity to show that content to more people.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Where can people get hold of you online?
I'm best found on Twitter, Bridget Randolph, all one word. So I hope to see you all over there.
I'm sure people can see you over at Distilled as well.
Yes, that's
thanks
true.
a lot. Thanks a lot for coming on, Bridget.
Happy holidays, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye. And we've got Alexandra. How are you doing there?
Hello. I'm pretty good. What about you?
Pretty good. That's not as good as excellent.
It's really close because it's the end of the year. It's really busy, extremely busy.
It's a busy time of year. So, Alex, what is your SEO prediction or content marketing prediction for 2016?
Actually, it's a mixture of content marketing and what Google has started to implement right now. That's mostly about what I think that Google right now is really, by the way, hi, Dave.
And that's not me. Dave Naylor has appeared for audio listeners, actually.
Yeah. So, and that's how Google Mission has started to change due to launching all those knowledge graph elements. And so before that, it was like providing to users the most relevant information and getting out of the page of Google just to provide websites where you can find everything. And when we see like knowledge graph elements and all those kind of elements where you can search, like for example, I've recently searched for British Airways ticket because I have a flight to London really close, and I was able to find out the tickets inside Google. So basically that was a search button and search graphs where I was able to add all my dates and find out my tickets. So it means I don't really need to go to any kind of website like aggregators like Skyscanner or Booking.com or Expedia. There is no need to go there because what Google does right now, it's like moving traffic to the site of Google, which is really strange for me and weird. And that's kind of scary because all those like websites with diversity of data, they're going to be somehow downgraded because people don't need to go to those websites.
Okay,
Google
wow.
provides it.
So Google displaying a lot of information directly in its search results there. In 30 seconds, Alex, what does a business need to do in order to actually take advantage of this?
Well, it's hard. I mean, like for websites like aggregators, it's hard to compete, but more or less for like just businesses to appear in knowledge graph elements for sure, like brand knowledge graph about company, that's must have. And if you can appear in answer boxes as well, like local packs, just do it.
Answer boxes, yeah, that's a great thing to focus on for 2016 as well. Where can people find you online?
So the best way is to do it on Twitter. And so you can find me by my name, Alex Chalova. So really hope to see you guys there. And thank you very much and have a really lovely holidays.
You too. Thanks for joining us. Have a great Christmas.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello, Dave. How are you doing there?
I'm not too bad, matey.
Okay, great stuff. Hopefully you're feeling better than you were last time you were on Tweo.
Yeah, I'm at home at the moment. I'm still full of cold, though.
Oh, it's that time of year.
Yeah, definitely.
So what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Well, I think the problem is that we've got at the moment is everyone's going content strategy, get more content out there, which is all about just getting more links realistically. So I think this year what Google will do as part of this Penguin rolling algorithm update that's going to happen all the time, I think they're not going to just analyze the links of where they're being placed and add them and take them away. I think they're going to start looking at things like user interaction, impressions on that page, click-through rates, and discount and promote that way. Because to me, it kind of makes sense that if you've got a link on an old PR8 website that nobody ever goes to, but it's passing massive amounts of equity through to it, or a link on a PR2 website that is passing tons of visitors through, in Google's eyes, that should be the more important one. And I think they'll start twisting that a little bit. We've seen it with citations and stuff like this. So that's where I think they'll go anyway.
So I think you talked about user actions a little bit as well. So how can actually Google, what information can Google get in terms of seeing what user actions there are, and what do you think it will actually take into account with regards to its algorithm?
Well, if you look at things like from Google Organic specifically, that we know about long click and short click. So if you click on a link, go to a website, go, oh, didn't want to be on this one, straight back to Google. Google look at that and they don't push you down because of that, but if you've got long click, then they'll move you back up. So that's one user interaction. So if you've got a high trafficked website or a high traffic blog, let's say, and you do I don't know, I'm just picking something at random, Urkel. I'm sat on an Urkel sofa. So if you're a fashion blogger or a home interior blogger and you blog about Urkel to a company that sells Urkel furniture and you pass a lot of people through that, well, you think of how many people use Chrome. I'm on Chrome at this moment in time, and how many people are signed in. You look at the way that Google's customizing search so that if they're interacting and they click on that link and they stay on the website, then that's like a bonus, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like not only to the person who's created the content, but to the user of Chrome or Google Analytics. You know what I mean? It's like, or even if you're just using Google DNS servers, you know what I mean? Yeah. There's loads and loads of ways that Google can trap this data. And from that point, you know what I mean? It just makes sense to me that it should be a quality score, at least in the organic search results. So I think that's...
No, that's wonderful. Lots of great things to think about there. So thanks for coming on, Dave. Where are the best ways for people to actually find out about you online?
The interweb. Just type in my name, you'll find me. On Twitter, Facebook, or just off bronco.co.uk. That's where I'm from.
Have a wonderful Christmas.
And you. Merry Christmas, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Dave. Andrew, how are you doing?
Hey, David. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very, very good. Thank you as well. What is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Two now, I guess. Dave's kindly just kind of covered off one of the ones that I was going to put in.
Three would have been too great.
But I think a lot of people probably will be covering user experience as well. But I think in 2016, I think the important things for SEO are going to be personalization and user experience. So if you think about the way Google are going, a lot of what they're doing at the moment is kind of increasingly leaning towards becoming quite focused on machine learning. So, obviously the big kind of news in artificial intelligence from Google was Bain being launched the other month and being integrated into organic search. But you can see that, they're integrating artificial intelligence right across their product suite. So YouTube had stuff within the last year or two as well. This is quite important for personalization and user experience because the artificial intelligence allows them to be able to assess and interpret a lot of or large volume rather of data and user data and be able to start kind of modifying and amending the search results on the fly with that data. And from a personalization standpoint, basically what that means is that they'll be able to look at what the kind of large scale user trends are, but also personalize user trends, and then from the large scale stuff it'll help them get better at surfacing kind of new content that's relative to your own personal search trends as well. So in the past the problem with personalization of search was it just returned the same sites that you'd been on all the time higher up, whereas I think that the way that they're able to go with AI, I think that should help with surfacing new content. And then that ties in from a user experience perspective, because one of the things that will drive your own personalization will be your user interaction with sites, but also, and kind of as Dave was covering, and a wee bit as Gath covered earlier as well, if there's a real kind of quality of content out there and it's getting a good level of interaction in terms of all the metrics that we know Google can measure in terms of engagement, so things like dwell time and bounce back to search time and page depth, interaction time on site, all these kind of things. These metrics are likely to become more important because they're harder to game for a start, so they're a natural quality replacement for the previous kind of heavy weighting on links as a ranking factor. So I think both of those go hand in hand, and I think they'll hopefully help present a more genuinely representative and useful set of search results, but at a personalized level as well.
Well, a lot of great thoughts there. So essentially, Google personalized search is going to get more clever, and you need to actually ensure that you're within that, and you're really understanding who your personas are.
Exactly. And it creates a challenge obviously for businesses, but it's a good one, and it's one that's no different really from the challenge that there has been for the past number of years, because it will be about continuing to create genuinely useful quality content and not trying, as Gath quite rightly said, it's not going to be a volume game, it's going to be about a quality and usefulness of content, and some of that will have a cost to produce, but it's also easy to produce kind of quality, genuinely useful content at a much lower cost as well.
So where can our viewers find you, Andrew?
You can find me through the Equator website, which is eqtr.com, or on Twitter at Andrew J. Steele, or on LinkedIn, Andrew Steele.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Andrew, and have a wonderful Christmas.
Brilliant. Have a great Christmas as well, David. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
So we're looking for Justin DeVille. I think he was having challenges with a webcam, but Danny Ashton's on after that. And Danny, can you hear me there? So we've got Danny that had a few challenges with his webcam, I think, last time. So Danny or Justin DeVille, I believe, should be coming in. Now, after that, let's see who else is on my list after that here. So Danny, we've got Adam Vowles after that as well. We've got Justin coming in just now. So let's see if we can say hello to Justin. Justin, can you hear me?
Hi, David. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. You probably can't see me, can you?
We can't see you, but we can hear you. So that's the main thing. It'd be worse if we could see you and not hear you.
That's no problem. I'll try and get the webcam working. It didn't work for me last time when I did it. So well.
So what's your SEO prediction for 2016 then, Justin?
One of the things that's interesting me, I'm not sure it's a prediction, but it's one of the things. My background was in keyword research, and that was how I got into SEO originally. And it's the disappearance of that kind of bedrock of knowledge about how SEO works, with the increasing importance of voice search. And I think one of the things that I'm interested in is how SEO and our understanding of digital marketing is going to change as voice search becomes more popular over the coming years. There was a statistic from Google, so we take it with a small pinch of salt, which is that 55% of teens are now regularly using voice search when they're searching with Google, compared to 40% of adults of our age, David. And so that again has a number of ramifications in terms of the way that search is going to change. And maybe there's a kind of a story from the other morning. I've got an 18-month-old daughter, at the moment, and she's just learning to speak for the first time. And so I got up the other morning. I had her under one arm, and I opened the curtains, and I said, "What's outside this morning, Maddie?" And she said, "The garden." And I was kind of, half of me was incredibly proud that she knew exactly what was outside, and she'd never used the word garden before. And the other half of me was like, "Oh, but you've understood my question completely literally. You haven't, what I'm really asking is, how is the day? What's going on? How are you feeling this morning?" And afterwards, the geekier side of me realized that there's a parallel there between her answer to that question and the way that search engines used to work. I mean, it used to be the case that if you typed into a search engine, you had to be completely literal. And probably today, if you type into Bing, you still have to be completely literal. But Google is getting much, much better at understanding what we really mean in our searches. And I think voice search will take that to another level.
So voice search is going to become really important in 2016 for certain niches, certain markets, not necessarily everyone, but you need to be aware of who your target market is and what their habits are in terms of conducting searches. So the way that your target market conducts a search might not reflect necessarily the way that you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some retail clients where people are shopping for products. They're not necessarily going to be using voice search. But if you own, for example, a restaurant, and someone is walking down the road with a mobile phone in their hand, and they're searching for restaurants nearby, a lot more of the signal that Google is including in its algorithm is implicit. So Google knows about you, the fact that you have a mobile phone, the fact that you're walking, as opposed to being in a car. And so it will give you a range of results within walking distance of nearby restaurants. Now, if Google can tell from your phone that you're in a car, it may give you a range of restaurants from further afield because it knows you're able to get there more quickly. And so that's there's a lot of implicit information that Google is now taking into account in its algorithm when it's determining its search results. And I think that's really tied in with voice search as that becomes more sophisticated.
Justin, where are the best places for our viewers to find out more about you online?
Then you can come to receptional.com.
Superb. Thanks for joining us now. Okay.
Christmas. Cheers, David. Thanks a lot.
Great. And Danny, how are you doing there?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. We can see you. And yes.
Perfect. I feel like I've just jumped onto Justin's time just with my face. I didn't mean to.
No, go for it. Now, what is your SEO or content marketing prediction for 2016?
Prediction. Okay, so I'm not a technical for SEO, so I can't talk about any of that world. I don't even know if there's any algorithm changes or anything like that. But what I will say is, probably 2014, 15, 13, they were the year of the infographic. The infographic has proven itself to be the most powerful way of getting big placements from publishers. And I would say the upcoming year, 2016, we will be seeing video taking over that spot. So maybe it's not going to completely take over the static image assets, but certainly video is something that publishers are already doing. So if you look at the way publishers are already kind of exploring what they're working on and adding to their sites, they're using video as a way to get more value from their users. So as content marketers, SEOs, whatever name you want to give us, we're going to have to give the publishers what they need. The publishers don't have the budgets that they used to, so they're going to rely more and more on brands and businesses to provide that content to support their business goals.
Okay, so you're not going to just rely on one source of content, one type of content in terms of your marketing. You've got to be more integrated and more forward-thinking in terms of how you actually produce content.
I know that's a thing within, obviously, SEO. We need to do that, and obviously, it's a good practice as it is to do lots of different content. But if your primary aim is to build, to earn placements, media placements, then you want to use the most effective. So 2015 was very much the infographic. And I think 2016, we're going to see the video as another supporting way. It's got a higher barrier to entry. Not everyone can afford to do it, but that's going to mean that it's going to be for the ones who get onto that, the ones who are going to succeed.
Obviously, my agency
is already doing it, and we're already getting some great results. So that's kind of obviously where our prediction comes from what our own experiments really, and seeing what works.
Where's the best place for viewers to find out more about you, Danny?
Check us out at neomam.com. That's neomam.com.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a wonderful Christmas.
Thanks, David. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Adam, how are you?
Yeah, really well, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thank you. So what's your SEO prediction for 2016?
Well, first, let me say I love the jumper, David. It's
thank you very much. You can't see all of it, but I don't know if I can get it off. Maybe at the end I will.
Yeah. Just finish off with the flurry. My prediction is kind of a continuation of what we've seen over the past few years, really, of kind of Google trying to wipe out kind of organic search. So this is nothing new, really. They've been doing it for a while, and you can see it definitely with kind of the real-time algorithms that are coming in, kind of the machine learning, but specifically the kind of growth of the answer boxes and the knowledge graph.
And I see they're testing 4 results of ads at the top of organic results as well at the moment, which is quite scary.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think search results containing the kind of answer boxes have increased by 50% in the last 2 years or something like that. So they're definitely kind of pushing that forward. So it's kind of moving the organic search kind of down and kind of focusing more on the kind of keeping people within Google itself, trying to just force people to use ads, really.
So do you think any business can actually realistically hope to appear as a result in an answer box?
Well, I mean, as marketers, we just need to kind of embrace the technical side of things and also be a bit more clever with our content marketing. Maybe kind of move away from that kind of answer box kind of information queries, because it's going to be incredibly difficult to rank in those queries now, because the big sites are going to be the ones that are going to get featured in them, really. So you just have to be a bit more clever with what you're doing, especially embracing local as well. That's going to be a big thing, I think.
Question from Chris Green. David, can you show us your jumper? Maybe at the end. Maybe if everyone actually stays to the end. Maybe then. I'm not promising, but maybe. Adam, thank you so much for your sharing of those thoughts there. And where are the best places that our viewers can find out more about you?
Probably Twitter, ATVals.
Superb. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and have a great Christmas.
Thanks a lot.
Tyler, how are you doing? The first audio challenge. So I'm afraid we're not actually hearing you. So that normally is a setting within your browser. Now, if you're in Chrome, that means generally if you go to Settings, Advanced Settings, Content Settings, and then you can select a microphone there. But what you generally have to do is actually come out of the Blab and probably close down your browser and come back in. So if you want to perhaps give that a go and close things down and come back in, hopefully we will have you back on in a little bit. So coming up next, we are going to have Alex Tucker from Practice Web. We've also got Tom McLaughlin coming in from SEO Travel. So let's say hi to Tom as he comes in just now. So he should be in the next few seconds. After Tom, we're going to have Michael Fleischner from Big Fin Solutions, and that's Tom in. How are you doing there, Tom?
Hi, David. Yeah, good.
Yeah, very good. We've got you in 4 minutes ahead of schedule. That's just shocking. Yeah. So you're cutting out just slightly. I don't know if we've got to the audio challenge section of the show, but hopefully we'll be able to hear you okay there. Let's give you a go with your SEO prediction for 2016.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, mine follows on from what some of the other guys have mentioned. Very much the move from the kind of content is king to quality content is king. Putting more emphasis on creating content which is of really high value, a lot more time and effort going into creating longer form pieces rather than just churning out your short kind of 500 word blog posts every other day and sort of crossing fingers and hoping they bring traffic in. And I think that kind of applies whether you're talking about your own website and your own blog, or whether it's talking about kind of guest content that you're writing, taking more time to find sites to write guest posts that generally will, they take more time to kind of build a relationship with someone. But when you do spend that time, the value that you get from it when something's published is much higher.
So you see 2016 guest posting still being very, very important.
I think guest posting, as with a lot of things where, Google and Matt Cutts have kind of come out with the scare stories, it's always been, I guess, warning people off doing the sort of easy SEO sort of back alley way of trying to beat the system. They're all things that if you do them the right way, they're still very valuable.
So in terms of the right way for guest posting, is the right way to actually to try and repeatedly guest post on the same blog, or
Yeah.
appear in as many different places as possible?
I think it's finding the outlets that are relevant for your audience and that are going to bring you value, whether there's a link in there or not. That's, you know, from a ranking point of view. So, you know, if you can find a place that allows guest people to content and your audience is there, then go in there and take some time to build a relationship. You know, for example, someone like myself, I've obviously been on a few things with you, David. Analytics SEO is a great site. Potentially down the line, I might say, do you fancy some guest content for your blog? And it's more likely to be successful that way, rather than, you know, sending an email, you know, from nowhere saying, can I write a guest post, and having 500 words of not much value.
Are you smooth talker, you? So,
January the 1st.
Okay, some great thoughts there. What are the best ways for people to find out about you online, Tom?
So on Twitter, SEO_travel and SEOtravel.co.uk.
Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great Christmas.
You too.
Hello, Alex. How are you doing?
Hi, fine, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, your volume's quite loud, but we're doing well.
Let's see if I can do anything about that.
So anyway, what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Yeah, I think Justin already made a point about voice search, actually, and I think I'd agree that voice search and rich answers as well probably going to be a lot more prominent for Google in the next 12 months, and for brands that's probably going to be, if brands want to take advantage of that, it might mean a change of thinking around our content, and it's going to make the language that we use and semantics really important.
So, I mean, talking about brands, you obviously head up marketing for Practice Web, so you work for a brand. How would you take advantage of Google Answers?
Okay, I think that you know, if we're looking to do this, we probably try to produce much more factual content, and also much more kind of useful how-to kind of content, and be a lot less promotional about our brands, and deal with that aspect using kind of calls to action a bit later on. So really much more about being factual, but also understanding our personas and the language that people are using to find things. So really being switched on in terms of the kind of topics that we're covering and the subjects that we're producing content on.
Okay, so 2015 may be the year when we actually talked about personas, but 2016 really the year that we do something about personas.
Yeah, they're going to become really important.
Great. Okay, well, thanks so much for joining us. Where are the best places for people to find out more about you online?
Tucker A on Twitter, or our website is practiceweb.co.uk.
Superb. Well, have a wonderful Christmas, Alex.
Thank you. You too.
Tyler, can we hear you? No, we can't. I'm afraid we're struggling with your audio. We can hear you, Michael, can't we?
Yes, I believe so. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, phew. Yes, we can. Yes. Okay, your lips started moving before the sound come out. But I mean, still, that's not a major problem. You know, the thing is the sound came out. So that's the great thing. So how are you keeping?
I'm really good. David. Thanks for bringing together people from all over the world today. This is really fantastic.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you on and have all these other great SEO experts on. So in terms of your own thoughts, what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I definitely think this whole idea of artificial intelligence is just going to continue to evolve, and we're going to see it play out in 2016. You know, Alex was talking about personas, which I think are so important. You know, I think the Google algorithm, as it continues to evolve, 2 years ago, you couldn't ask the question, you couldn't be talking about the Great Wall of China and then ask a question about, where is that thing, and get a customized answer that's relevant to the content. So I think it really all comes back to the algorithm continuing to get more intelligent, and we as SEOs trying to be more conversational in our language, be more focused around engaging content that the algorithm is going to want to leverage and help brands show up higher in search results. So, I think it's going to continue to evolve. The technology is going to continue to get better and more precise. And that really gives us an opportunity to better understand our customers, really analyze the types of content and information they want. And, sites that are better at producing that type of engaging content are going to do better in search results.
So all the more important for sites to help search engines define exactly what their content is about in terms of context. So does that mean that something like microdata is going to become even more important next year?
Yeah, I really think so. And I think also having a deeper fundamental understanding about the needs of our customers will continue to evolve as well. So it really does come down to marketing basics that are applied online as it relates to content that our audience is consuming, better understanding what their needs and objectives are, and helping them achieve those goals.
I like the way that you say marketing basics rather than SEO basics or digital marketing basics, because it really is about integration and about taking conventional business and marketing principles and applying it online and doing things the right way nowadays, which is a wonderful thing for SEOs to be talking about.
Yeah. And I think, as you know, from many discussions that we've had, SEO has changed so fundamentally that you can't just focus on one niche of marketing or one marketing discipline. You really have to bring them all together to not only understand your customers, but to make sure that you are producing information that the search engines really want and value. And that requires more than just a kind of cursory glance at, some of the traditional SEO tactics that we used to deploy.
Do you think it's realistic to expect SEOs to start thinking in terms of marketing strategy when they've perhaps been so technical in the past?
Yeah, quite honestly, I think it's necessary to survive, right? Just understanding SEO fundamentals and basics might be enough to get a seat at the table. But if you really want to contribute and make a difference and see tangible results, I think we're all going to have to evolve in terms of our fundamental understandings or understanding around some of the traditional marketing things like audience, like, personas, like, need-based marketing, really making sure that we're providing consumable content that our audiences not only want to receive, but they want to share and distribute to others in the genre.
Okay, wonderful thoughts there. What are the best ways, places for our viewers to find out more about you?
Well, folks can just Google me online, obviously Michael Fleischner, or at @mfleischner is my Twitter handle. Would love to connect. And David, thank you so much and happy holidays.
Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful holiday season yourself.
Thanks.
We'll give Tyler a go again. Tyler, can we hear you? No, we can't hear you, I'm afraid. Maybe you could mime your prediction for 2016. Okay, starting off with, that's going to be a bit of a challenge possibly as well. So we'll leave Tyler to figure out his technical challenges there and perhaps see if you can come and back in again. We've got Andrew Shotland with us here. Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you very well indeed. Great to have you on. So what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
So we find Google rather boring these days and worrying about Google. There's only about 1 billion people talking about that stuff. So we're trying to go where others aren't. We're pretty focused on Apple's new Spotlight search system and trying to figure out how that's going to affect our clients in 2016. We think that there's going to be a lot of attention gradually paid to this really a new search engine that already is taking a huge market share from Google, but is basically ignored by the SEO community and the media. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at.
Right. Okay. So what kind of reaction do you get when you say, "Oh, I'm getting bored by Google"?
Everyone's like, "Yeah, I hate Google." Tell me one person who likes Google, except that it's a free service that does great things for you. But as a business person, it's infuriating.
Can you see Bing or another search engine really actually making significant inroads in terms of search traffic?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, Apple already has, and it's kind of quietly done it without anyone really understanding it. As an example, Apple Maps is a huge local search system and serves something like 60 million people in the US already. But if you have an Android,
is changing. So it's not the traditional search anymore. It's actually search you do on your phone, and it's not necessarily using conventional traditional search providers.
But it's also on desktop. As an example, we have a client that has about 10 million organic visits a month. And but they also have simultaneously about 8 million visits a month coming from desktop and mobile Safari combined, which includes organic, but is also direct and referral. And you can easily see how next year, with the growth of iOS, how the Safari traffic is going to overtake the organic traffic. And so certainly you'll have to understand Google Organic to get part of it, but there's a tremendous amount of queries that Apple is kind of bleeding away from Google, that if you know how to manipulate Safari search engine or the Spotlight search engine, you'll be able to grab a lot of value for yourself or your clients.
Oh, that's an incredible thought for the coming year and even longer. What's the best way for our viewers to find out more about you and what you do?
You can find us at localseoguide.com, Twitter at localseoguide, and we have a blog on Apple Maps called applemapsmarketing.com that has a bunch of how to do stuff on Apple Maps information.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Andrew, and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thanks for having me.
Grant, how are
you? Hello, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you very well indeed.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Right, some great conversations going on. I dare say you want to know about predictions for 2016. I love
that would be a wonderful.
I love the idea how we talk about all these things that we're going to do, but we never do. They actually happen the year after. But I'm going to go with structured data first of all.
I'm going to write it down and revisit you next year and see.
Do that. Do that. So when 1 year back of all the things that we thought should have happened, but we knew they weren't going to. I'm going to go with structured data or microdata. It's not new, but it's incredibly clever, and it's one of these things where it's one of the last bastions of code that's never really been properly implemented on a mass level for SEO. So just being able to understand what the products and services are, how they become location-based, are all now remarkably important going forward, because secondly, the second prediction is very much about hyper-local results as things become more and more relevant to, where's the nearest pizza restaurant? It has to understand what nearest means to you as well. So that whole idea of structured data, looking at services, products, and events, and telling people what they are and where they are and on what web page is going to be a really important thing going forward. And I think it's going to be one of these things that's going to make a huge difference as more and more people use mobile as part of the search sort of mechanism. It's becoming more real time. It's more local to you.
So should every business be using structured data?
It's not, if they could. I don't honestly, it's easier to implement now than ever before, obviously, because you can just use JSON. So there are some of the things that were more difficult to do, that these barriers have been broken down. So I think that'll be one of the things that will make a difference between winners and losers, especially in the local and the product and the service space.
Yeah, if Google can or are confident what your website is about, obviously they're more likely to rank you higher.
Try telling them in the first place. And very similar to that, artificial intelligence, it's been mentioned a few times. We had a great conversation about it a few months ago. But the whole idea about where you get this information from, as in the device you use and the platform that you use and all that kind of information there, it was mentioned earlier on about what Apple were up to. That's going to be remarkably important. So the whole browsers and devices and apps and ad blockers game is going to be a huge thing that plays out pretty much beyond your control in many ways, because AI is going to pull information from different places. So you've got to understand about how you can get into these places. So you're going to have to look at deep app optimization and how you get these things found when people picks up a phone and start shouting questions and answers or looking for answers down their mobile phone. So there's a big thing that goes away from Google, and it's basically about the device you picked up and what you asked and who provides that information for you. So there's a lot to play for there about making sure that you understand where you may be losing your traffic from, and artificial intelligence towards the end of the year will probably make a bit of a dent into people that would have just been using traditional search engine optimization and search engine marketing to find this information. So, yeah.
Grant, yeah, so a lot to think about there. Thanks so much for joining us. Where's the best place for people to find out more about you?
You can get us at ambergreeninternetmarketing.com. We've just went and looked at our epic digital marketing predictions for 2016. And you can also get us on Twitter, and that's ambergreen_says. And happy Christmas, everybody.
Have a wonderful Christmas yourself, Grant.
Thank you. Take care. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Let's give Tyler a go. Can we hear Tyler?
Okay.
Well,
Final
hey,
try.
we can hear you.
Excellent. Okay, I have no idea what was going
to
on.
hear
Very
you
strange. It's been testing correctly the whole time, so I don't know.
What is your SEO prediction for 2016, Tyler?
All right, my SEO prediction for 2016 would be that the role of the SEO analyst or SEO strategist is going to continue to change, much like it has been for the last couple of years. Only, I believe we're going to become more of a conversion optimization, UI, UX strategist as well. So the strategy piece in our names is really going to become kind of forefront as Google continues to change what it's using as metrics, such as putting more emphasis on social media, putting more emphasis on UX, UI, such as the Phantom algorithm update this year, where they basically said, we really need to be showing us your JavaScript. We really need to be seeing this so that way we can make sure that your site is ranking is clean and that we know you're trustworthy. And these trust signals are going to continue to play and become a more important role, which is going to be a big change for SEO people as we were used to in the past, mainly focusing on keywords and link building and kind of technical elements. We now have to be kind of a holistic strategist. And so I think this is going to double down in 2016, as many people on this podcast has talked about, where Google's really changing the signals that they'll be utilizing, including like the Google Knowledge Graph, where they're putting a lot into the SERPs already. So we need to make sure that we are, when people see our information, it's not just about how can we trick them into clicking, but how do we actually get them to trust our brand and then go into our site and enjoy their experience on every website, especially mobile, as we know that's now the main place people are going.
Yeah, lots of wonderful thoughts there. So UX much more important. Does that mean that links are becoming less important?
I would say links are still going to hold an important place in 2016, but compared to previous years, yes. I believe the emphasis needs to be more on how great of a site we can make, how great of content we can put out there.
Mm-hmm.
And links should simply be something that happen organically and not something that we should emphasize as much time on the link building piece.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks so much for persisting there, Tyler. Where's the best place for our viewers to find out more about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at @TheTylerBarnes, or check out my writings on the Influence blog. It's emfluence.com. So everyone have a happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you as well. Thanks, Tyler.
Cheers.
And Mr. Matt Hodgkinson, how are you?
Good evening, David. It's London calling. Our first 8 points go to Norway. Always wanted to do that.
You fancy a bit of a Eurovision song contest?
Absolutely. Can't wait. That's my prediction for next year. Norway for Eurovision. Yeah.
There we go. Thanks for being on, Matt. No. Let's give you another one. Okay. What's your other prediction for 2016?
Okay, so we heard a bit of this earlier on around personalization, and for me, next year is all about people finally, marketing directors, CMOs, anybody in SEO really focusing on giving a tailored experience to each and every visitor. We get so much information now about the visitors on our site. Even when they're not a revisiting visitor, we get information about the browser they're using, the device they're using to access our sites, the location that they're in. So why are we still giving the same experience to every visitor on every page? And Google and the other search engines are really going to be looking at, we've heard it a few times tonight, the user experience or the visitor experience as well. So VXO is this new acronym that people are starting to talk about, visitor experience optimization. And it's really going to be about focusing on keeping people on site, giving them a more immersive experience and more engagement. I'm going to go a little bit against the grain. I've heard, more long form content spoken about, and I don't think that's going to cut it personally. I think you've got to recognise that people, for the most part, are time poor, and they're not going to really value a long form piece. So I think actually next year we're going to see more and more people moving away from the long form pieces, certainly ungated content and blog posts, and certainly away from ebooks and the traditional kind of yawn pieces, and really move towards more immersive web apps and other experiences that really draw people in, keep them on site for longer, keep them converting, and really engaging with the content and engaging with them to share.
Intriguing. So the most relevant content for your personas, for your relevant visitors that you're trying to attract, and not necessarily writing War and Peace on your pages. It's just delivering exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah, and it's got to be something that I mean, the good thing is when we provide these immersive experiences and really put some thought behind how we're structuring it, we can gather so much more data about the visitors on our site. And as we know, good marketing, good SEO is really about learning about the behaviors, the people, the individuals that are visiting our site. That's why, the standard analytics that you might be looking at in terms of visitor numbers, time on site and everything else are largely anonymous. We need to go beyond that. We need to start thinking about the individual, tailoring the experience, learning as much as we can about them and feeding it back to them.
Matt, you've given us a lot to think about there, so thanks for that. Where's the best place for visitors to find out more about you?
Catch me on influenceagents.com, find out all about us there, and have a great Christmas, everyone.
You too. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we have a challenger to my Christmas jersey. I think we're going to have a props war, aren't we, Andrew?
Yeah, maybe.
Who wins there? I think I'm going to have to get up here. There's
You can graciously all mine, just yeah.
So Andrew's got a little bit of tonsillitis, but you've still battled in and joined us today, so we appreciate that. So what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
That PPC teams and organic teams will work a lot more closely going forward. People like SEO teams will get access to the AdWords data, so they can see what advert tests the PPC teams are doing, which ones are working, and then copying and pasting the ones that are working in PPC into organic as a meta descriptions to obviously boost the click-through rate. And as people have said, machine learning, you get high click-through rates. Historically, you might see an increase in rankings. So that's my prediction, is that PPC teams and organic teams will work more closely together.
Okay, so is that something that you're actively involved with at the moment? And if so, do you actually try and tell your PPC teams not to bid in certain terms because you're ranking well for them organically?
I manage both, so yeah.
You have a conversation internally.
Yeah. Once I get into a decent enough position, I still try and bid for certain times of the day, but yeah, I cut down my bidding and let organic take over, and then use the money I've saved on that PPC to try in that area to try different categories to boost.
And is there an argument to appear for both PPC and organic if you're ranking number one for organic?
Yeah, because you still have to the same customers, so customers might not even scroll down, especially these days with 4 adverts appearing, or if you've got the answers box, sometimes you can be well down in organic even if you rank number one. So sometimes you still have to pay for that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us, Andrew. Where's the best place for viewers to actually find out more about you?
On Twitter, it's just at A Halliday.
Well, you get well soon and have a wonderful Christmas.
You too. Thanks guys. Bye.
And Mr. Chris Bland's joined us. How you doing there, Chris?
Hi, how are you, David?
Very good, thanks. And you're coming through nice and clear as well. So
Great stuff. Great stuff. How are you? Happy Christmas.
Yeah, happy Christmas to you as well. I don't know if you've got a Christmas jumper on. I don't think you have.
I'm afraid not. No, I miss that memo, but I bring Christmas spirit of a Friday afternoon.
There we go. So what is your SEO and content marketing prediction for 2016?
Right. So mine's, I guess, a little bit controversial, but also picking up on some of the good points there by your previous speakers, particularly Tyler, around personalization. So basically that organic marketing must find a way to keep up with the increasingly personalized and data-driven marketing user experience without compromising its natural principles. And obviously risking penalization. Just looking at the past year, there's been a huge rise in the use of first-party and third-party data to improve both targeting and personalization of the user experience. And slowly, brands are starting to optimize the experience for users by investing in that data to enhance their knowledge of users. And what's happening is that user experience is becoming vastly at odds to the much more natural experience that you get for users arriving from content or from SEO, who de facto are not pre-built with that kind of innate knowledge that you get from first-party data or from third-party data. So their experience of the brand when they first arrive at a site is much dare I say, less intelligent than that it's a data enhanced on the way in. Now, obviously, there are some downsides to some of that data enhancements, and some mistakes have been made in the past. But bit by bit, people are much clearer about holding back and releasing data when it's useful and when it adds to that experience, and not deterring users. And of course, with the natural side of things, that's much harder to kind of put into play. So you've got these dual experiences that people are starting to get from brands, which I think is going to increasingly start to jar as we go into next year. I put that out there as a challenge to the community to try and kind of beat that and try and make sure that they align those two different experiences from the natural and from the data enhanced side.
That's a wonderful thought and challenge there. So we'll hopefully revisit that coming into 2017.
Cool.
Where do our viewers find out more about you, Chris?
So you can find more about Havas at havasmedia.com and myself at Chris Bland UK.
Thanks so much for joining us, and have a wonderful Christmas.
You too.
Michael, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, and thanks. Yes, absolutely. So what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Well, being one of the last guys on the group, everybody just said what I was about to say.
There's a few more to come, yes.
Somebody talked about how big phones are starting to get. So this is my latest iPhone 17. And it is getting a little bit big, but on a serious note...
That's like a phone from the early 90s, isn't it?
But on a very serious note, though, one thing that I did want to say was that interesting enough, a lot of people look at China as copies of everything that we do. And the more I understand how the Chinese work, especially when it comes to Baidu, Taobao, which is their shopping. It's a very shopping-centric engine, and many other products that they have over there, especially WeChat. It's very interesting to me because I'm starting to see Google and Facebook, a lot of them starting to lean toward their types of algorithms that they've been using for years. Okay, we'll take user experience for. So now we've learned through this conversation, and we've probably learned throughout this year that the movement toward user experience is starting to become a factor. Well, it's got to be a factor. It's got to be a factor because of these giant tablets and these phones and everything else. The factor of user experience on mobile, on your website, on all of your tech related programs, whether it's apps and so forth, all of them have to have some type of user experience. So when you look at Baidu's algorithm, it looks at click-through rate as a factor. It looks at the amount of time that you are spending on a specific page. There's a lot of factors around user experience that they're looking at per website and per app and per a piece of content that somebody has out there. Another thing that Taobao does that's very interesting is Taobao's ranking engine is based on user reviews, but it's also based on the user themselves. So that goes back into personas. So if Google's algorithm is moving toward an area where they're looking at specific personas and saying, okay, let's group these personas and see what they do and how they react and what kind of people they are and what industry they are, and let's make some determinations of what they're going to say and what they're going to do. It starts getting very interesting, but a lot of the stuff has already been created. And then lastly, WeChat, right? So WeChat has really taken over China. A lot of the social networks are lost hundreds of millions of people to WeChat. So WeChat is basically a walled garden approach, similar to what Facebook is, obviously. Now, Facebook's model with what they're trying to do and what we're looking at more and more is how do we keep these people within our own environment, right? So you've got Android, you've got iOS. Facebook has a challenge. They need to keep somebody in their own environment, and they can't really come out with their own with their own operating system, right? So they develop a WeChat type business model, keeping people in with search and social and everything else within it, and keep people engaged. So it's interesting to me that if we start looking at the East a little bit, we might find some clues to where everybody is going in 2016.
Wow, a lot of insights there from an international SEO perspective. Where can viewers find out more about you?
So I'm at SEM International, so that's www.seminternational.com. We do international search, and of course my Twitter, at Michael Bonfils, and pretty much everything is Michael Bonfils all together, one word. So you'll find me on Facebook and Skype and everywhere there. So thanks you guys for
Thank you so much for joining us, Michael, and have a wonderful holiday season.
Yeah, happy holidays to you all.
Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Keeping very well, thank you.
Good. You can hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. What is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Again, mine's not going to sound very unique now because of all the others that come before, but I'm hoping that I don't know, there's some stuff here that no one else has mentioned in terms of the angle, I guess. So I think the kind of the first thing to say is kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek, actually. 2016 will be the year of the mobile again. Just a running joke that Google sold us this every year for the last 5 years. And 2016 is probably the year where I think that's actually going to be close to being factual. And I think that's just because obviously search behavior is more weighted towards mobile now. Obviously, we've had Mobilegeddon, which was one of the biggest anticlimaxes the industry's seen. There is no smoke without fire. And how it manifests itself next year, I think has already been covered. In terms of deep index, app indexing, digital personal assistants. They're all going to sort of increase in prominence. Google AMP, accelerating mobile pages, sort of rolling out more widely in February. But actually, I think one of the biggest insights, into this kind of shift and movement behind mobile comes from actually something we talked about when we did our live show, David, and that's stems from the quality testing guidelines that Google shared not too long ago. And that was about the way that mobile has become a much stronger part of their manual testing and QA. We've had whether the site is expert, authoritative and trustworthy, but now obviously whether it's mobile has become a large factor in that. And I think the other kind of element there is considering, whether your site or your content or even the search results are meeting the needs of the user. And I think that mindset of fully needs all the way to fails to meet on the other end is quite a critical one. How
do you find out if your site does fit the needs of a user?
Well, test, look at the data, gain feedback however you can. I've jokingly said a few times now that UX is the new SEO, or CRO is the new SEO, and I think whilst that's not wholly true, I think there's some truth to that, or there will be in 2016. We've touched upon it before already about the various engagement metrics that we can look at, and if we can see them, Google could see them, and they all give good indications as to how satisfying or useful the experience on a page is.
A comment in the chat saying, what about including live streaming in the content strategy? No one's touched on that. That's obviously what we're doing at the moment. Is that going to be part of your strategy in 2016, Chris?
Yeah, I hope so. I think it's something that how far brands themselves take into it is going to be, very depending on the industry. But I think it works. I think
it depends on you and this business, and also probably the personalities of the people within the organization as well, whether it's right for them to do.
Yeah, that's quite significant. Some clients will always be very risk averse and put the word live with anything, and they get a bit twitchy.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Chris.
Where's
the best way for our viewers to find out more about you?
Find me on Twitter, ChrisGreen87, and then the links to all the other places. Take it from there.
Have a wonderful Christmas, Chris.
Brilliant, you too. Thanks.
Pam, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, pleasure to have you. Have you been doing more live streaming yourself?
Not just yet. Talking about it. Not doing it just yet.
Okay, 2016, maybe doing it, but we'll see. So what is your SEO prediction for 2016 then?
So I think Google is on a mission to address shorter attention spans. Actually, they said as much. Gary Illis gave his entire closing keynote at PubCon about shorter attention spans. He opened up by saying, I bet you think I'm going to talk to you about mobile today. Well, I'm not. you need to make your sites load faster. And then went on to do the whole presentation on how attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and how it's a goal for them to be more of a personal assistant to the searcher. So another way that they're doing that, in addition to offering up sites that load fast, it's been touched upon quite a bit throughout this broadcast, is through providing answers right on the SERPs, right on the results pages through Knowledge Graph and Answer Box, and using artificial intelligence to do so. And by them recently coming out and saying that RankBrain, their artificial intelligence algorithm, is now number 3 as far as important aspects of their overall algorithms, they're really showing that they're kind of hell-bent on using AI to mold the search results. So I think it's going to be incredibly important to help them do that. Now, right now, the Knowledge Graph and Answer Box content is mostly dominated by larger sites and more broad searches, but I think my prediction is we're going to see that open up more to more sites and more nuanced searches and queries. So I think that it's going to be very important to feed them that information through schema markup. And that's one of the ways that we can help them understand the content truly with AI, is giving them more context via markup. So
that's interesting. You're getting a few props.
Important.
You're getting a few props for that, actually, saying that Google are perhaps going to be opening up answer boxes to smaller websites. Do you not think there's an issue with them not knowing whether or not they can actually trust smaller sites?
Not knowing, I didn't catch what you said, whether or not...
Whether they can actually trust smaller sites.
Oh, trust, yes.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be kind of a new wave of challenges for them, as with everything that every opportunity they give the SEO world, we can't have nice things because we don't use it. So that'll be a trend, for them to figure out how to weed out the, what's trustworthy information in the markup, that they're being fed this information through markup. How do they know whether or not to trust it? There's probably a whole another layer of algorithms that's coming down the pike for them to figure that out.
Absolutely. Well, lots of great thoughts there, Pam, and original thoughts we haven't had so far. So thank you so much for sharing them. What's the best way for people who are watching to find out more about you?
Sure. Thanks again for having me. PamAndMarketing.com or PamAndMarketing anywhere on the social web, Twitter, wherever.
Great. We'll have a wonderful holiday season, Pam, and we'll talk to you in the new year, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we've got Mr. Greg Gifford on. How are you doing, Greg?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Keeping well, thank you. Keep powering away here. So what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Well, my SEO prediction is anyone that does live video with cool animated backgrounds is going to win the game.
Hey.
No, really, seriously, though, I think I've kind of been listening in and nobody's really talked a whole lot about local. I think we're going to see a lot of changes in local next year. We saw, they're in the process of rolling out the new update to the Google Plus pages and completely pulling the location information away from the Google My Business pages and now just making them a Google Plus social page. So all that location information that they've been pushing us so hard for since way back in the day when it was Google Places is now not really visible anywhere other than your knowledge box for your dealership or for your business. And then we just saw recently, a couple of ways to set your search location in Google. So now you can only see search results for the city that you're physically located in. And a lot of people are using the, adding ampersand near equals whatever city, but you're not getting real results like the people in those cities are. So they're clearly making some really big changes to local, and it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. I think we're going to see some craziness there. I also think Beacon Technology has a huge opportunity to blow up next year. We're doing some pretty crazy things with it right now. And, just for any local business to be able to run retargeting at people that were physically at their place of business is pretty exciting. I think video is going to blow up even more next year, especially as we get some of the younger generation kind of coming into things. Like my older kid lives on YouTube. He'd rather watch YouTube than watch TV. And, I think within the next few years, when we have that younger generation that's really into YouTube and Vimeo and all the other sources, I think they're going to really just depend on video on the web more than anything else. And then finally,
okay, so go for it.
Well, my last thing is the new Facebook ad types are killing it for us. The local awareness ads and the click to call button is crazy. And I think pairing the new Facebook ad types and the crazy demographics you can target, along with pulling audiences off of the beacons that you put at your location, are just an incredible opportunity for local marketing that we haven't had the ability to do anything like before in the past.
So are you saying that as an SEO, you can no longer just think about SEO in 2016? You've got to be aware of other marketing activities around you.
That's a really great segue. I'm speaking at Brighton SEO in April again, and my entire talk is, if you're doing local marketing, it's no longer just about SEO.
And you didn't feed me that line beforehand.
Right.
Well, I'm sure I'll see you there. So thank you so much for joining us, Greg. Where's
Thanks
the best
for having
places? Where can people find out more about you online?
Follow me on Twitter at Greg Gifford, or head over to the Dealer On blog, which is www.dealeron.com.
Have a wonderful holiday season, Greg.
Thanks, you too. Great to see you.
Emily, how are you?
Hi, David. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. What's your content marketing prediction for 2016 yourself?
I have to say I'm a bit nervous about making a prediction, because the last time I did this was when we were going into 2013, and I sort of stood up and said it's going to be all about Google authorship. So I'm really hoping, hoping I can do a better job this time. This time, and I'm going to sort of disagree actually with one of your previous speakers. I think it's all about long form content. I think if you look at what's happened over the last 2 years, content's been not just getting longer, but we've had the sort of fruits of it getting longer, and the reasons why it's been getting longer becoming clearer and clearer. So Google's just released in full for the first time, as probably everyone watching knows, their search raters guidelines, and there's a lot of stuff in there about making your content authoritative, trustworthy, sort of expertise led, none of which is particularly new information. We've all been banging the sort of quality content drum a long time, but what I've sort of extrapolated from that is, we've done every bit of snappy short form content already. We've done the listicles, we've done the clickbait, we've done the Facebook, there's nothing new that we can do. People go online to look for information, particularly if they're looking to spend a lot of money, and they're not going to be satisfied if you just give them a sort of quick 10 tips about marketing kind of article. You have to offer them something with more substance and backed up by research and data and insight, and really sort of share your expertise in that way.
Long form isn't going anywhere. So does that mean that you don't think that short form content is going to be as important in 2016, and you should actually focus most of your energies on long form?
I think it depends on your sector. So we work a lot in B2B, and I think definitely for B2B, long form's the way to go. We've all sort of seen embarrassing attempts by accountants to get cool and go viral on YouTube, and it never really seems to work. Obviously for a sort of consumer facing brand, it's going to be a different story and a different strategy, and they might not have quite such a need for long form. But yeah, certainly if your proposition to a client involves them spending a lot of money for something that they're trusting you to do well, then yeah, long form content's essential.
We've got Matt Hodkinson, who was on earlier on, who made that point, saying in the chat, long form is still valuable. My point was that it's not as engaging as web apps and video for the time-poor browser.
Well, I think, people, I take the point, and again, it does vary by sector, and it depends who the customer is. But if you're asking somebody to invest tens of thousands of pounds in a sort of enterprise-level solution, they're not going to sort of watch a 2-minute video and go, "Yep, here's my money." They're going to want to look at a detailed white paper. So I think there's a space for both, definitely. It's not one or the other. It's looking at which one's most suitable and what it is you want to achieve.
Thanks so much for joining us, Emily. Where's the best way for viewers to find out more about you?
They can have a look at my agency's website, writemysite.co.uk. We're on Twitter on the same handle, and I'm on Twitter personally with the handle Ask Emily Hill.
Have a wonderful Christmas, Emily.
Same to you.
Mr. Chris Marr, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you? How's the call going?
Keeping very well, and I think I'm just about getting away with it, yes.
Good stuff. Loving the jumper, mate. Loving the jumper.
Oh, thank you very much. Your shirt's okay. What is your content marketing prediction for 2016?
My content marketing prediction, I've already written about this previously, but it's a 3-way sort of thing. I'll try and keep it very short as I can. Coming at it from the business perspective, not the client business sort of relationship that most marketers talk about. So I think going forward into 2016, businesses are going to have to embrace the principles of content marketing in-house, because up until now, the marketing has just changed so much, and I think that they're starting to get a hold of this thing. A lot of people have heard of content marketing. It's now about understanding it and actually executing in the business. So we're spending a lot of time trying to get businesses to really get on board on this thing and enable them to take it forward. So content marketing, the principles of content marketing in business, along with great customer service and experience. I think that people need to look at the offline, like, consumers are judging businesses online before offline. I think they need to think about the customer experience both online and offline. So content marketing is sort of showing people what you do and matching that with a great customer experience. Those two together with a third thing, which is business systems. I think they need to look at technology and how they can create efficiencies, create a consistent approach to that customer experience as well, and delivery, so that they can rely on the systems there as well. So content marketing to obviously create interest, awareness, engage, emotional connection, all that kind of stuff, along with the customer experience, matching that, and the business systems in place to actually deliver something consistent as well, and to track and measure all of that activity. So going forward, I think that businesses just need to get smarter. I think they need to listen to marketers and obviously take advice, but they need to have this longer term perspective of actually integrating it into their business as a culture, as a way that they do things.
So do you think we're still at a stage, Chris, where the majority of businesses aren't treating content marketing with the seriousness that it actually deserves, and perhaps thinking that it doesn't actually deliver much ROI?
Yeah, I think there's a big misunderstanding of what content marketing actually is in business. Marketers get it. Marketers can talk to death about it. Businesses don't get it. They don't understand it. Marketing in business is not a priority in most cases, never mind understanding what content marketing is. So, content marketing is the only type of marketing that's really left. I think the businesses have got away with shouting the loudest to get the most attention. Times have changed. Consumer behavior has changed, and therefore it's time for business communication to change.
Great. So lots of thoughts there to think about. What's the best way for our viewers to find out more about you?
Grab me on Twitter at ChrisMar101, and that's the best place to get me. Thanks very much for listening, and good luck with the call, Dave. Really good stuff.
Thanks, Chris. Have a wonderful Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And Tom Schwab, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Dave, but I don't have the accent or the Christmas sweater, so I feel like I got two strikes already.
Yeah, you've got the accent in my ears. I think you're the minority, actually. I think it's mostly Brits we've got on here. So anyway, what is your content marketing prediction for 2016?
Well, I look at it, the way to go from obscure to acclaimed in 2016 is going to be just like we're doing here, through interviews. They could be on Blab, they could be on podcasts. Right now, all the blogs are getting so saturated. And if you look at where people are spending their time, where there's focused niches of people just longing for information, that's on podcasts. And it's something that we've been testing over this last year, and been amazed at the amount of traffic, leads, and customers that have gotten back from it. It's converting 25 times better than just blogs themselves. And one of the things that I didn't appreciate was all the SEO value of people sharing this, and also all the backlinks that are coming from the interviews. Some of the interviews are ranking higher than some of our blogs, our long form popular content.
Okay, so you don't even think about building links. You just produce content that's great on a site that's structured well, and then the links for you naturally evolve.
Well, there's that seems like what Google's giving the most value to, and that's what people have been talking about here. So I think anything you can do to get that natural sharing, that natural authority back to your site through real customers is ideal.
So you talked about podcasting. Do you think you need to be absolutely consistent with doing a show or doing the same type of content all the time? Or can you get away with just producing a high quality report and then having that report as your evergreen piece of content, but perhaps not having so many other regular, consistent piece of content?
I think the true answer comes from what your experts say, what your customers say. So if your customers are reading long form, like Emily was saying, like white papers, that is great. But if they're not consuming those, you need to find another way to break through the noise. And, marketing is all about starting a conversation with them. So how can you do that? How can you build that know, like, and trust? And maybe that's talking to them, on a niche podcast for 30 minutes, and then taking them from there, bringing them back to the site to show them a white paper.
Wonderful thought. Marketing is about starting a conversation. What's the best place for our viewers to find out more about you, Tom?
Sure. My website is tmschwab.com, and I'm on Twitter at tmschwab.
Superb. Well, thanks a lot for coming on, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
And Mr. Mark Trapagan, how are you?
Hey, David, good to meet you. Good to meet you. Gosh, we've met before. Good to be with you on this holiday special. I love what's happening here.
It's wonderful to have you on, and I don't think I've seen your fancy spectacles before. They're very, very impressive.
I'm a little closer to the camera than usual, so.
So, what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Well, I'm going to go into something a little more technical and esoteric, but and then try to make it as practical as possible. And that is the implications of machine learning at Google. Google is doing a lot with machine learning. In practical parlance, it's what people are calling artificial intelligence. It's not really that yet in the technical use of that term. But machine learning is basically the algorithm being trained to learn on its own, to learn about the real world, learn about the way things relate, learn about the way we talk, the way we use language, and be able to assess that in ways that humans just are naturally. So the implication of that, I think, is not something you can optimize for directly, but that it's going to mean that Google, the first application we're seeing is what they've called RankBrain, which they've just announced recently. And RankBrain is a kind of filter on the algorithm that allows the algorithm to, first of all, learn about natural language and then interpret ambiguous or difficult queries. So queries that don't necessarily, somebody asking a question that's not the normal way somebody would ask it, but we as humans would say, oh, he means this or she means that. Well, the computer being able to do that. Now, where the application that is coming on the other side is it means that Google is going to be able to match up more queries than ever before with content, but with content that it could never find before. But that also means that they're understanding that content more richly. So you've got to be building more rich content, but not just rich content. You've got to be building the whole user experience on your content pages, anticipating everything that a user might need or want. They may be asking for one thing, but what are people who come asking for that also looking for? If your page,
so how do you anticipate what the user wants?
That's going to take a lot of thought. It's just going to be thinking of putting yourself in the place of the user, talking to your current users, your customers, doing all kinds of analysis of what happens on your site. Where else do people go when they go to a certain page? Those kind of things. Looking at associated queries, but thinking through and just trying to take a step back and thinking. We used to think about just the keyword, right? We just got to get them there for the keyword. Now we got to be thinking more about what's the universe of things. A person that's coming to our page for this particular task, what else are they looking to get done? And if we're helping them to get those things done or find that information or get to that place more easily, we become more useful to Google and more likely to be shown by Google to people asking those questions.
That's an absolutely wonderful thought to just about finish things with, actually, because you're not only delivering the content that a user is actually requesting or looking for, you're actually seeking to deliver the answer to the next question after that, which they haven't actually figured out what it is.
So at Stone Temple, we're working out how to do that. We call it content effectiveness optimization, CEO for your site. And we're working with our clients to begin to think in that direction. Think about that. Look at every landing page and say, what is the universe of needs and wants and desires that people coming to this page might have? And how do we include that? How do we get them there and say, like, hey, you can see this too, or you can do this, you can accomplish that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mark. Where's the best place for our viewers to find out more about you?
I always love this question because I just say my answer is just Google Mark Trapagan. The whole first page of Google is me. All those places where I hang out.
You've bought the top 10, though, of course.
Not buy them. Earned them.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again, and have a wonderful holiday season, Mark.
Thank you, David. Great show. Appreciate it.
Great to have you on. Now, to finish up here, we've also got Mr. Lawrence O'Toole here, who's joined me here as well. Lawrence O'Toole is the founder of Analytics SEO. Now, just before we get to Lawrence, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deliver my prediction as well, which is I reckon that Facebook are going to become much more important in 2016 for SEO and community building, because a lot of big brands out there have started to build their communities in different places. Over the last couple of years, you've had organic reach that has decreased significantly on Facebook pages. Facebook pages haven't done much or haven't seemed to do much for the people using them recently. I think Facebook is going to give a little bit more love to that and encourage brands to foster communities on there. And I think that with the introduction of broadcasting, live broadcasting directly in Facebook. I mean, you've seen live broadcasting in Periscope, you've seen it in Blab. It is really going to take off in 2016. So I think Facebook is what is going to be one significant focus for SEOs in over the next year or so. We have some interesting chat going on here. We've got Matt Hodkinson saying, "Where's Lawrence's jumper?" And we've got Mark Traphagen saying, "Jumper?"
Covered in beer from last night.
Mark Traphagen, "Jumper? Your Brits are adorable." Trying to put on Mark's accent there. And Lawrence, what is your SEO prediction for 2016?
Well, being last on, it's hard to be original, but I'd like to pick up on a couple of themes. Firstly, for me, I always like to start with a surefire bet, and the first prediction, the most important in January, is that Wycombe Wanderers will beat Aston Villa in the FA Cup third round. So if that's right, then I'll be on song with the rest of my predictions, which basically I think we're going to see more variety in the SERPs than we've ever seen before. Certainly our own tools that we're analysing the SERPs, the mobile markup, what's changing, we're going to see more of it. And you look back at what's happened in 2015, we've obviously, everyone's talked about machine learning, the rise of direct answers in the SERPs. I think we're going to see more variety, more innovation. Why not have live video? Someone mentioned live streaming, live news, breaking news in the SERPs, very much more differentiated around your context. We've seen the changes that Greg mentioned about local. So there's a huge amount of change and innovation going on in the SERPs. And I don't think we've really even scratched the surface of where Google and the other search engines might go. What does that mean for us? I mean, why is Google going down the machine learning route? Well, because they're processing something like 500 million queries that they've never seen before every month or so we hear. So for me, I think the guys that understand this, the customers that understand the market and can do audience research, not keyword research, can do customer experience research and focus on customer experience and reputation will do the best. And for me, that means they need access to, I would say this, obviously, big data and big tools, and they really need to understand what's happening in their marketplace and gear themselves up organizationally to touch on and acquire the data. And just picking up on the point Mark made, I was with a head of a customer experience for a major brand today, and we just really ideas backwards and forwards and discovered there's so much content that they should be having their call center systems that should be feeding into their content marketing team. And if you can amplify that around just what your customers are looking for, but your competitors' customers, the whole industry, and you can analyze data at scale, then you really are going to build authority in a niche and really, really well serve the needs of your current customers and hopefully attract future customers. So for me, I think come this time next year, if we don't all have data scientists on our team analyzing this stuff for us and giving us the kind of insights that Google's machine learning gives them, then we'll be missing a trick.
Superb. Lots of wonderful thoughts there as well. So thank you so much, Lawrence. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. We've had 31, excellent thoughts from SEOs, from content marketers who are leaders in their industry. So I really, really thank everyone for joining us today. And that completes our SEO and content marketing predictions for 2016. Let's all try and meet up in a year and see how we did. So if you're watching or listening to the show as a recording, remember to watch the next episode live. So head over to thisweekinorganic.com and be part of the audience for the next live show, which will be held on Friday, the 8th of January at 4 p.m. GMT, 11 a.m. EST. Guests on that show will be Andrew Steele from Equator. Andrew was on earlier on this program. Also, James Loomstein from Digital Space Consulting and Pete Campbell from Kaizen. But for those of you watching live, we also have an audio and video podcast of previous shows. Again, sign up to email updates at thisweekinorganic.com and you'll receive the podcast links from there too. But until we meet again, have a wonderful Christmas, a wonderful New Year, and thank you again for all joining us. Bye-bye
Happy
for now.
holidays, everyone.